Yeah, making the new IP is how can I put it? It's just don't do it. It's insane. I mean, it's a very difficult process. You have more questions than you have answers, especially when you come from like you've been making Uncharted 1 and Uncharted 2, just kind of like now like things are going, you just kind of like good momentum, and then suddenly that momentum like just drops, it stops. It's a very challenging process to create a new IP, and you're gonna fail over and over again, but that's what it takes.
New IPs are really hard. They're hard because you don't know what's fun yet. You're building new tech, new AI, establishing new characters, new art, all this. You don't get that controller in your hand for like 6 months to a year.
You don't know what it is yet. I remember like ages ago coming on the project and what are the infected gonna do? Like, what are they gonna do? They're gonna behave like this. I'm like, okay, we're like trying to imagine what's gonna happen. Fast forward like 4 months, they don't do that at all because it didn't work, right?
It's hard mode, right? Like it's game development on expert.
There's a big thing about making a game, right? Which is a game has to be fun. You get your first build where everything's working. You got player mechanics. You can walk around the world. You can shoot. You can melee attack people. You've got the AI in there. They're very intelligent, very difficult, and it's totally not fun because they snuck up behind you and murdered you in a second, and there was no way to figure out what was going on. We're making a game, by the way. Hey, James.
The company has grown quite a bit since I started. I think I was the 12th employee or something back when we got started, but we've tried to stay true to those smaller studio roots.
I've been here for 16 years. There's just no reason to leave. I just like the environment here. It's very non-corporate.
I think the way we work on Naughty Dog is kind of special because we don't really like hierarchy or bureaucracy, and no one is really just a manager here.
Naughty Dog has a very flat structure. We pretty much all report to the co-presidents and the game directors.
I always tell people when we hire them, just like, my job is going to be able to trust you, and that's what I want. I want just to give you something and you go with it, and I know it's gonna get done.
We believe in iteration, we believe in collaboration, and we believe in the people making the game working directly with each other.
When we have designers and artists, animators all mixed up, anybody that's working on the same tasks, the same characters, the same areas, put them next to each other so they can communicate a lot better.
We don't have a lot of meetings because if you need something to get done, you just walk over and you talk, and then you go back to your desk and you finish it up.
And I really like that. I like when I just walk in the office and I see just designers talking with the programmers or programmers over the animators and talking to them. I think that's when really the magic happens.
Naughty Dog, we really try to cultivate a culture where anybody can criticize anybody else's work.
And we encourage people to be blunt about it and not try to sugarcoat it too much. It takes too long to be nice sometimes.
It's not personal. It's based on more like how can we make a better game.
We want everybody to have a voice. We want to cut out all the bullshit if we can, making sure that people are making decisions not based on ego, but what is going to benefit the game.
When you see that people trust your opinion and that they value it, it's such a great feeling. You really feel like you're working as a team on a collaborative effort.
We want to sort of remember where we came from and why we were successful then, and try to continue that success now.
We make games. That's what we like to do.
Back when Uncharted 2 wrapped up and we decided that we were going to build the second team and create a new project, we kicked around a lot of ideas. One of the very earliest ideas was to go back to Jak and Daxter. It's really near and dear to us. We really love those characters in that universe, and we think that there are some interesting stories still to be told there. We started to realize that it was not going to do justice to the franchise that the fans had fallen in love with. It would be shifting it so far in a new direction that we felt that effort would be more justified in developing a new IP. Neil and Bruce came to Christoph and I and said they wanted to do a post-apocalyptic game. I think the core essence of what they wanted to do, though, was to try to tell a story about two people and how their relationship evolved over the course of the entire game.
That potential, oh wow, there is something very special about that game. This is going to be polished. Like, you're not sure if it's gonna work or not, and you have doubts. And like, should we be doing a game like that? Should we be doing a first-person shooter? Whatever. Like, you ask yourselves all those questions.
And the creative director and the game director are the core of the team that have to really see eye to eye.
That's why you have that balance between like Bruce and Neil's gonna try to push the just the story and the characters, and Bruce is going to try to push that with just the gameplay as well. And so it's kind of like those guys are just trying always to find the right balance between the two. It's a very delicate process.
We feel that the interactive medium has an untapped potential to touch the feelings of the player. You have that connectivity, the fact that I'm actually in the world and participating in what's happening on the screen in front of me. It gives us some sort of advantage to make you feel connected with what's actually happening. At Naughty Dog, that's what we're trying to do, is pair story and gameplay together. If we can make you feel like you're actually with these characters on that journey, and you're invested in those stories and those characters, then you're feeling, in theory, the same thing that they're feeling.
As the story evolved and took different shapes and different forms, the thing that was always there was Joel and Ellie. And because of that, everything kind of grew out of that relationship.
We've seen kind of that role of the anti-hero change, especially over the last 3 to 5 years, to where before it was like, the thick-neck mercenary kind of guy. For this game specifically, for this story, we needed something new.
The reason we didn't want to make Ellie Joel's daughter from the get-go is because it wouldn't have anywhere to go. Of course, at that point, he'd be willing to do anything for his daughter, because that is what a dad would do for his daughter. If they didn't even know each other at the beginning of the story, then we start from scratch. It's almost like the player has the same relationship to Ellie as Joel does. And we could take our time to build that relationship between these characters. And if we do it right, then the player will be feeling that same growth that Joel does. And we're kind of mirroring that emotional relationship between the two.
What are you doing?
Killing time.
Well, what am I supposed to do?
I am sure you will figure that out.
Your watch is broken.
It's exciting that Neil wrote something like this, where he's like, I don't want to make the stereotypical characters. I want to make real people in this crazy situation and these forced to make decisions that are really tough. Like, what would we be like in those situations?
I mean, we weren't consciously trying to pick male or female for characters. You just try to pick characters and just be honest with who they are. It almost doesn't matter, right? Joel's daughter could have been Joel's son. Ellie could have been a boy, and Joel might have been Tess. You could have swapped those roles, and I think the story would have still worked.
The focus on female strength, it's so unique. You get to see what's so powerful about a woman through all of these female characters, which makes this game wonderful and unique. There's a crew of Fireflies that'll meet you at the Capitol building.
That's not exactly close.
You're capable. You hand her off, come back, the weapons are yours. Double what Robert sold me.
Speaking of which, where are they?
Back in our camp.
We're not smuggling shit until I see them.
I want Joel to watch over her.
Whoa, I don't think that's the
I'm not
best
Ellie.
idea.
him.
How do you know them?
I do think having a strong female character, especially like Ellie, is so rare in video games. And as a gamer, and more specifically a female gamer, it's frustrating to me because I'll see sort of the stereotypical female character where she's amazingly beautiful and huge boobs, and she's there to be either the love interest or just because they're like, well, we need to throw a chick in here.
We've seen the strong woman or we've seen the weak woman. We haven't necessarily seen the empowered woman from this kind of standpoint. And there's that beautiful scene where Joel finds her inside the house and she's reading through this girl's journal going, is this really what they used to worry about? What shirt do I wear and what boy am I gonna go out with? You know, and to be met with those first world problems that we deal with every day and go, how trivial is all of this? I think it's gonna resonate a lot, not just with, you know, a female audience, but with a male audience as well.
The thing that was intriguing to me after the fact is knowing that we're kind of creating a female action hero in a way, and this is her origin story with Ellie.
To sort of be such a strong female character that is completely normal looking, regular t-shirt and jeans, and she's 14 and she is still a total badass, is really exciting to be a part of that.
There's so few non-sexualized women in video games, especially in the main role, that we were kind of proud that we were creating one. It's very complex, and without the players knowing it, she becomes the protagonist by the end of the story. And that's why she's in the front of the box, and that's why we've been promoting the two of them together so much.
Who's there? It is a dual protagonist game, and yeah, I guess I get nervous to think about it in that way.
We couldn't talk about it. In fact, in interviews we've been lying about it, saying you never play as Ellie because it was so important for that to be a surprise. Sorry, journalists.
Here we go. Sorry. Hold on. That's it.
The tone of the game was set pretty early on that we knew that we wanted to make a really grounded story. We knew that we wanted to make the player feel the sense of tension and dread and go through the same emotional roller coaster that Joel and Ellie were going through.
One of the things we kind of struggled with is to say, well, if we want to really ground this world and make it so like realistic, maybe we shouldn't have anything that could be perceived as a monster. Maybe like by just having an infection that just killed people, and it's all about humans and how they deal with this post-apocalyptic society and how different people decide to survive. Maybe that would be enough. And what we realize is because we're making an action game, a lot of the storytelling happens on the joystick. And once we remove the infected, it's like all of a sudden now we can't tell the story through gameplay of what happened to the world. And that's where we kind of went back and kind of brought the infected back in, because it lets you see, once you're fighting them, the threat that people had to deal with, that otherwise would just be very cerebral and people could talk about it, but you couldn't necessarily experience it yourself. In a novel, that might work. In a game for us, specifically an action game, it didn't work.
And from there, when we start kicking around those ideas, and we're just like, what would be cool just to play?
The early inception for it really came from a BBC video we saw called Planet Earth, where they were talking about a cordyceps fungus.
This cordyceps fungus gets inside of the brain and controls these ants, and mandibles start chomping, they grow up to higher areas, cordyceps fungus sprouts out, and then it germinates.
And essentially uses them to spread its infection and take over whole colonies, sometimes wiping them out. As soon as we saw it, we were intrigued by the idea of, what if it jumped to humans? So what would happen? How would people react? What would happen to society? As we're trying to develop the look of the infected, we went through so many different iterations, some that looked really alien and subhuman, some that looked just essentially like zombies, and we couldn't find like an original place for them. But one of our artists just did this kind of photo mashup where he took a bunch of images of diseases or images of fungal overgrowth, and he kind of mashed it all together and he threw it on this person.
It was a very iterative process, making sure that the fungus felt properly integrated, like it was part of the body, growing out of the body.
And not just fungus growing on the head, but it's tearing the face apart, cleft down the middle, this gaping maw of a mouth with the crooked teeth.
And it's in great agony as its humanity and its brain is still somewhat functioning. Maybe you still have some human cognitive abilities or thought process back here.
This isn't some decaying corpse on the ground. This is a living thing that's going to be coming after you in the world.
The fungus is always the focal point. So you can see from a distance, oh, this guy's infected. I can tell straight away.
In fungus, they have these beautiful saturated colors, and we really like that conscious of this something so horrific that it's going to like stop at nothing. It's relentless force of death, and yet elements of it are beautiful. It's not just about gore. It's not just about everything about it being scary, because to us it's actually scarier when things on it are somewhat benign or somewhat beautiful.
It was evident that we were onto something that was quite a bit different and something that we hadn't really seen before, which was eerily human but very disturbing.
And it seemed so creepy and so unique that right away we gravitated towards it, and it's like, this is our base infected, everything should kind of come out of this look. So once we had this idea of the face-splitting kind of look that eventually became what we called the clicker stage.
We went to great lengths to create a full biological cycle for these things.
So in the early stages, you don't actually see too many signs of the fungus surfacing out of the skin. It's kind of underneath it, like people have lumps starting to show. The eyes will be kind of cloudy or lopsided because the fungus kind of originates inside the head.
That moves into the next phase, which is the clicking phase.
And if they mess with the eyes, we end up saying, well, how do they get around? Oh, echolocation.
And they use a form of echolocation to track down their enemies.
Just like bats, or even some blind people can see by making a clicking sound, a sound that on its own wouldn't be very scary. And then to associate it with something that people in this world are very fearful of, so that as you're exploring an environment, all of a sudden you hear this click, and you're seeing everybody just get frightened, just everybody duck, everybody hushes.